What's going on, Ruben? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? How's it going with you?
Good, good. Just got home 15, 20 minutes ago. It's good to be home. You know how it goes. What about you?
Perfect. Yeah, no, I'm good too. I just got out of clinic, so headed home, ate some dinner, went over some of the talking points that we could discuss today, and yeah, I'm just excited to chat and get into it.
Yeah, man. You eat dinner early, don't you?
What was that?
You eat dinner early, don't you?
I do. I mean, usually I would prefer to eat dinner at like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. personally. That's when I like to eat because I wake up really early, so my whole schedule is just shifted.
What time you get
Yeah.
up in the morning? Tell me about this.
I would say like 3:34 is my usual because I know it's weird, but the thing is I like to start my day off doing everything I want to do, right? And then after that, do my responsibilities, go to clinic, study, work, whatever it needs to do. So usually I like just getting everything that I wanted to do that day, like personal development wise or personal work wise out of the way, go to the gym, and then after that, take care of everything else once,
Yeah.
all that's covered. So usually, and that I find it better that way personally because I feel like when you wake up in the morning, that's my peak, mental powers there, right? To
Yep.
whether I need to get some work done there. It's a best time to utilize that just for me personally. And then by the time you get home, it's already like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. You can start wrapping up and then go to bed. The whole day is ending. But anyway, what's your schedule like?
Yeah. Well, wait. What time are you going to bed then, man?
Usually like 8, 7:38 to wake up at 3:34.
It's 7:20.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm staying up. I'm staying up just for you today. So I'm staying up.
Jeez, past the bedtime 7. Oh man. Well, thank you. Thanks
Of
for
course.
burning the midnight oil with me here.
Yeah, I got some Diet Coke with me. It's pushing us through.
Geez, so you must be on pace for like a 3:30 a.m. wake up tomorrow, 4 o'clock wake up.
Yeah, so today I'm staying up obviously probably till 8:30 or so a little later, maybe like 4, 4:30.
Jeez.
Well, the best here's the thing. So I got to be at clinic at 9. The best thing of waking up super early is if I do my sleeping in is like 7 a.m. So you still get to sleep in. Still early for everything, so it works.
Yeah, what do you do on weekends?
So, well, we can get into this, but I work full time in addition to dental school. So the weekends I'm usually working. So
Mm.
just a ton of work, and that's also in the mornings. I do a lot of work there for my job. So full disclosure, I work for boot camp. I work on step 1 and step 2 content. So we're developing step 2. So I'm working a lot on that, getting that video content reviewed, questions reviewed, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's what you're doing on weekends, working full time. Wow, jeez, that's.
Yeah.
What does your workday look like on a Saturday, for example?
So let's say I wake up at like 4:30, or get a grab a coffee, take a shower, and then just get right on my computer. I usually have a ton of messages that are pending me from the night before, a bunch of content I need to review, whether it's quality, accuracy, or just administrative. A lot of the work I do is administrative, so I get that taken care of. And then usually around like 6:37, my favorite coffee shop is open, so then I can go grab another coffee then, which is funny. I'm always just waiting out the door before they open, but the coffee's the best. Coffee's the best.
They're standing there like this damn guy again. He won't wait 5 minutes.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I feel a little self-conscious sometimes. Like I'm like I can't keep coming back to the same place every single day. I gotta like switch it up. I mean, I'm sure they appreciate the business, but I don't know. Sometimes I think like, they're like, oh, it's the same guy. He's here again. And I don't know. I try to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So also for listeners, if you could give a little recap, what year you are, what dental school.
Right.
Obviously, I know these things, and we were chatting this weekend at the Columbia Uncovering Oral Surgery event, and that's kind of where we kind of picked up with these footsteps of getting today's podcast going, this chat going. Part 1, because we already planned part 2 technically, right?
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, if you could give a little intro, a little background.
Yeah, for sure. So for the audience, Dr. Gallagher and I met at this student-led oral surgery conference that me and my team at Columbia Dental put on. We're all third-year dental students, so we just wanted to put together an event to bring a bunch of students together. It was primarily based in the Northeast, so we had students come from all over the Northeast schools. Not going to name every single one of them, but you put it together. So we had like a huge turnout. It was awesome. We had a bunch of speakers fly in. We had program director from Jax come in, program director from University of Michigan, Mayo come in. We had our program director and chair speak. Dr. Gallagher was there. Dr. Auerbach was there, and Dr. Cho was there. It was a huge, huge turnout. The students loved it. So Dr. Gallagher and I met there, and we were just chatting it up. Just I introduced myself, and I don't remember how, but we got into the CBSE, um, and we just started kind of discussing how this test has really changed over the course of the last even 2 years, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, has changed, and probably even more so in the past 4 years. So I'm a third year dental student. I took the exam in February 2024, and even the advice that I was given by the upperclassmen then was a little out of dated for when I took it. And now this strategy I had is even a little outdated for the underclassmen below me. So it's a rapidly changing exam. And if you keep up with step one content, you'll notice that there's constantly stuff in the news. Like even recently, nutrition is going to be its own section. They just announced this very, very recently. So anyway, so we just wanted to discuss, I think today the main thing we want to discuss is the exam, maybe how to study, maybe what's changed, what are the techniques that students are using these days to increase their scores, because we see that scores are constantly climbing. And, is this an arms race? Just let's take a look at that.
That's great. Excellent intro. And that's exactly what we're going to get into. Let's really dive deep. So, Ruben, what we were talking about, where that kind of came up over at the event this weekend was, I think it stemmed from or brought up that the CBSE dissection video that I had made with Brandon Axelrod. He's a current oral surgery resident at Weill Cornell in the city. And we had made that video just over 2 years ago now, if I remember correctly. And so you and I were talking about even things since then have updated. In that video we had mentioned boot camp, and you were mentioning a new program. It was, if you remember what it was, like med something, some guys making questions or something. What was it?
So I'm not sure entirely what I was referencing, but was it Anki potentially?
No, it wasn't Anki, because we talked about Anki a bit in that episode. That's like a preliminary study tool to use until you get into boot camp. But we were talking about boot camp.
Right.
That was something that didn't exist when I took the CBSE boot camp for step one. I mean, we had like Sketchy Micro, Sketchy Farm, Pathoma. We had Boards and Beyond, which that was when I took the CBSE, and then with Axe we were saying less of Boards and Beyond, more of boot camp. And then with you, I thought we were saying that there was another study tool, and we're going to get into all this right now. But essentially, this is kind of like almost like a CBSE dissection part two. Maybe I'll even call it that. I don't know. We can think about this through the video today. But yeah. So why don't we jump right into it? So where did we say? We had said like with Axe, I was like Sketchy Farm, Sketchy Micro. You could even do Sketchy Path potentially. Pathoma. He was even saying maybe we were getting away from Pathoma a bit now. Preliminary before that, we were talking about you can use Anki, but then essentially it's 2 passes through URL, or at least 1.5, and then Amboss. We talked about Amboss, and you had mentioned a different study thing. Where did we leave off on CBSE dissection? I think it was like 1.5 times through URL. You want to get through at least it's like 75% through Amboss. He was saying, and then I guess the second pass through UWorld from there. Whereas in my time, I didn't use Amboss. It was just trying to get through UWorld twice. And there's more questions on there. Where do you see this going now? Where are we going now? Where are we at as far as the changes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts off. I think the key here is what kind of dental school does the student go to, because there's a huge difference in strategy when it comes to a traditional dental school where all 4 years are dental classes, and a situation like Columbia or UConn or Harvard when you're integrated with the med school for the first 2 years. In terms of, I can speak on, an integrated med school curriculum, and then we can speak about what I know some other people that weren't at these kinds of schools, how they did it. But essentially, you need a couple of different resources. One is the foundational, learn how to learn the foundational knowledge of the step one in detail, like kind of your base of operations, where you are learning the nitty gritty of everything and really understanding how to think like a doctor or a test taker. So in that instance, 2 resources that I can think of is Boards and Beyond or boot camp, where it has long form videos that really teach you the concepts. So that is your base of operations there. And then on top of that, you have your supplemental resources, like, in my opinion, Sketchy Micro is phenomenal for micro, or Sketchy Farm or Pathoma for understanding the pathologies of the various sections is good there. And then something to glue everything together, because the CBSE, most people are going to be studying for 9 months or more, and to glue everything together, Anki or UWorld or Amboss or Bootcamp, some sort of question bank that you consistently go through. Now, what I did and what I tell the underclassmen, and I've mentored a lot of them that have come through our school, is they start off with, they come in August as a D1, and whatever we're learning in med school at that moment, they're going to watch that congruously on boot camp. And so if we're doing biochem in med school, they're going to watch the biochem videos, and then they're going to unsuspend the biochem Anki cards. So they're going to do everything congruous with the classes, and that should take from August of D1 to July of D1, so the summer. Then they do UWorld or Amboss from July until November of their D2, and then from November to January, they're doing MBME practices and nothing else. And they're dropping Anki. Starting as soon as they start the MBMEs, they drop Anki. And pretty much everyone I know that has followed this pathway and done everything has scored very high, like 75 plus, mostly scores that start with 8. And have really grasped the concepts of the exam well. So this is what I recommend to people who ask me at the school. And we've seen that this has worked well for people.
That's a long timeline, right? So
Right.
people have to understand that what you just outlined in itself is, and this is combined with med school curriculum. So if you're at NYU
Right.
dental school, this is much different, right? Because NYU dental school, they're packing a ton of all the dental classes on, not combined with the med school. And now multiply that by, that's like a year and a half of what you just said of study.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I think that it really tests you to kind of be locked in for that amount of time and be studying that hard. But you know what? Like, at the end, it's people are happy with their scores. They think it's worth it. And yeah, for sure. I think if you go to a dental school that's not integrated with the med school curriculum, it's definitely a little bit more challenging. It's for sure doable. I know tons of people who have gotten phenomenal scores doing it with a traditional dental school. But I would say, like, that would be the advantage. Like, if someone asked me why I chose to come to the dental school I did, it's because I knew I wanted to go into OS, and I kind of took that into the calculation that this would help with the CBSE.
100%, 100%. And it's not necessarily, yeah, I mean, it's an advantage going into a school like Columbia, Harvard, UConn, Stony Brook. I think UPenn has that too, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
But programs like that, dental schools like that, and it's very important to consider, because I just know people, Toro, however they pronounce it, NYU dental schools. Yeah, it's just not, it's going to be a constant thing at a place like Columbia. It's constantly, every single day, you're in the med school classes. So it's that different way of thinking, because the medical school board exams are different from the dental school board exams.
Right.
It's just something as fundamental as that. So constantly being in a class where you're thinking in that different way of life, it's like, it's not one or two steps with the MBME, with the step exams, with the CBSE. It's like they give you a paragraph and you have to think 7 steps down, 7 layers deep, if you will. Someone explained that to me. They're like 7 layers is a good way to describe it. I agree. But to think that way every day for a year and a half like that, that's where I'm getting. That's what the point I'm trying to make. Whereas NYU Dental School, it's a different way of, studying, different way of thinking, different way of conceptually working through these problems. So I would say it's probably a lot more work that way. It's a lot more studying on the outside of doing UWorld, of doing the boot camp and stuff. So that's all. So let's move forward. Let's move forward with this. Well, let's start with the resources. Let's just recap the resources for this.
Sure. So resource-wise, I think, my answer would be, there are different styles of teaching. So I would encourage everybody to look and see what works best for them, what style they like, because we just have such a rich market right now of resources. And they're only improving, right? Because we have more data than ever, and we have AI capabilities now that are generating phenomenal questions. They're generating great questions, great explanations. So it really is an arms race right now of resources, and I think whoever's utilizing the most diverse set of resources is going to eventually find the resources that work best for them. And then when they find the resources that work best for them, that gears them up to perform at the best of their potential could lead them to.
Yeah, I agree. That's the best way to go about it. As maximizing the repetitions in the diverse group of resources, and then honing in on what works best for you. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Yeah, AI is changing everything now with the capabilities of question
Right.
generation and then explanation generation. I totally agree with that.
And I think, we're, as people who are taking the CBSE, we're in this unique situation where we don't really have any dedicated CBSE studying platforms. We're kind of just piggybacking off the step one,
Yeah.
which is good and bad in a lot of ways. It's good in the sense that we have this rich trove of resources, but it's bad in the sense that the step one is not the CBSE. It is they're very similar. They have the same concepts in a lot of ways. The CBSE is made in a lot of ways to prepare medical students to take the step one. It's used as a benchmark. However, the step one in 2026 is not the same step one as it was in 2023. The
Mm.
step one actual exam the stems have been getting much, much longer. If you do the free 120s on that the MBME puts out, you will notice that the stems are much different than they are on the MBMEs, the practice MBMEs. They're much longer. They're less buzzy. However, the MBMEs have not changed as much as the step one has changed. The
Mm.
MBME 32 is probably very similar or much more closer to MBME, just let's say 20 hypothetically, than a 2026 step one is to 2019 step one or whenever MBME 20 came out. So
Mm.
I guess the difference is much greater between the step ones and the CBSEs. So, and the resources that we're using, bootcamp, boards and beyond, sketchy, they're not made for the CBSE, they're made for the step one. So there's that there. So you could argue that difference there exists, and whether that's significant or not, I don't know, but it's just something that's interesting to consider.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that will definitely change your practice problems at minimum. Yeah, no, that's interesting. So, what would you say? Well, do you want to get into a good score now, or do you want to go into the specific resources and kind of how to study them, the strategy of the individual resources?
Right. So yeah, we could talk a little bit about resources first. I think the big one that I would like to talk about that I think is super hot right now that has really radically changed in the past couple of years is Anki, the utilization of Anki as to the point where it's pretty much considered in a lot of ways like mandatory almost from just what people are talking and the amount of people that are using it. Now it isn't mandatory, but a
Hmm.
lot of people really like it because it's very instant in a lot of ways. It's quick. So each card you can answer quickly. It's like TikTok versus watching a hour long video, right? So you get this instantly quick gratification where you can go through a lot of content in a very short amount of time. And for people that are very tired at the end of the day and maybe you have hard time focusing, that works really well for them. So me, for instance, I really liked using Anki because I was able to go through so much content.
Hmm.
Now, when you took the CBSE, was Anki that big of a thing? I don't think it was really, right? Or correct me if I'm mistaken.
A lot of people did use Anki, but I felt that I felt like I needed to cover more material than that. Like as far as like we had Anki decks on, I guess it was Boards and Beyond material, Anki decks on the first state USMLE step one material in that book. But I felt like when I actually really started to study, it was just UWorld. It was just UWorld trying to get in
Right.
through as many questions as possible, getting through the first pass, going section by section, like learning about the pathoma for cardiovascular. then going to what would be next? So path and physio for say cardiovascular, and then going to I really got to go in the memory bank here to remember how I did this, and then like all the resources between pathoma, between first aid, whatever another thing was, and then summarizing that with sketchy pharm, the pharmacology for CV, and then finally to put it all in a bun there, right? Put a little tie around it or in a bow, would be doing the UWorld questions for that section, and then moving on to respiratory, and then moving on to pulm, and that was the whole first pass to UWorld. And then the second pass to UWorld was going to be now I randomized it, right? And then we're just checking back with my PDF of first aid for the USMLE in the laptop, and really just kind of honing on those. Obviously, sketchy farm, sketchy micro for those, but honing into that for the second pass to UWorld. And then Ax was saying that's when you add an amboss before you do the second pass to UWorld or whatever. But I was just like, you got to get it randomized because that's how the actual exam is. So I felt that Anki definitely had enough there, but I feel like you got to be doing Anki 3 to 5 hours a day for 6 months straight in order really to utilize it to its full capabilities. Is that what you did? That's just how I felt. And again, guys, this is like 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think the strategy that you outlined is phenomenal. To be honest, I think just doing questions in any bank is definitely the best bang for your buck. Like if I had to delete everything and boil it down to just the bare minimum, I would say yes, doing questions in a question bank. Nothing's going to beat that. The concern, or not the concern, but the drawback is the gaps in memory and retention, because you have a question bank of 3,000 questions. Sure, you do one pass or two passes, but some of these questions are asking very, very specific details that even if you see once to twice, you're not going to remember. And I think that's what the advantage of Anki is that yes, you are going to be doing it for 6 hours a day, 3-4 hours a day, for months on end before you even touch a question bank, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea there, is that you are pretty much in Anki jail for 6 months, 8 months before you even see a single question. And then by the time you see the questions, you have all the knowledge pretty well memorized. So you piece everything together, you do all the questions, you do the question bank, you finish the question bank, and then you move on to the MBMEs. Now, I think, in my just personal opinion, having that memorization of the base knowledge, and it can't just be brute memorization, you do have to understand it, obviously. This is what the main platform, like long form videos like Bootcamp or Boards and Beyond, are going to be good for you, because you're going to actually learn the material. But when you start doing the questions, you're not missing things just because you don't remember something. You're missing them because you don't understand the concept as well as you think you did. So that's kind of what the goal would be there. And the other thing is Anki is very customizable. So if you do feel like you're spending 4 hours a day and that doesn't work for you, you can lower the retention metrics on the algorithm and essentially significantly decrease the amount of time that you're spending on the software, because the software doesn't lie to you. It will tell you, hey, if you want to have 99% accuracy on every single card that I give you, this is how much you have to do a day. And if that's not feasible for you, then you can be like, okay, well, I don't want 99% accuracy. I want 62% accuracy, and then it'll reschedule it. So it's fully customizable to what works for you. And I think that's kind of another advantage there, but it is definitely not, like I said, though, I do agree with you that if I had to boil it down, and no extras, one thing, question banks for sure, best bang for your buck. But in terms of, if you really, really wanted to get like an insane score, I think doing the Anki increases your chances of that. Not necessary, but I think it increases your chances.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And you basically said it though, because my kind of synopsis is that's like if you only get 3 to 4 months to study for, which is essentially what I did that in that time period. So, I mean, you have to be looking at it. This is exactly what you said early on. It's like a year and a half of these are the classes, and then you finally you'll add on whatever the first one was, and then you add on the NBMEs, and NBMEs were the last one. Right.
Right. You're right. So the last thing you're going to do is the MBMEs. at that point you're done with any third-party question banks, and you're done with any Anki, because
Yeah.
the MBMEs are written in a certain style. There's a certain ratio of gotcha questions to not. So you want to just get your mind, the last month, last 2 months, your mind is prepped to only interpret things in the way the test writers write it.
Right. Right. Excellent. So after Anki, what did you move on to from there?
So after I was done with Anki, I started doing UWorld is the question bank that I used the most then, because it was, at the time, it was pretty well developed. There wasn't any particular reason why I chose that. Sorry, I said it's well developed. I could have chosen Amboss too, but I just went with UWorld.
Hmm.
Had a great reputation. So I did all those questions, and I found that a lot of my Anki knowledge was there, but there was also some concerns, because the Anki, if you're not fully truthful when you're doing it, and you say you know cards when you don't, it catches up to you. And what I saw is that, there had been times, I guess, compounded, where I thought I knew a piece of information, and then I actually didn't really know it. So that's, the huge drawback of Anki, in my opinion, is that it doesn't tell you if you're wrong or right. If you're not paying attention, you might memorize a certain sentence, but if you don't pause and ask yourself, do I really understand this?
Hmm.
You won't be able to escape the reality when you get a question on it, right? Because the question is if you can answer the question right, that's the reality. Sometimes it's very. There was this one it was funny. I was this one question I remember very distinctly. I got wrong on a question bank, and I thought that this is a concept I have never heard of in my entire life. I was just like, I've never heard of this concept. So I go into Anki and I just search the keyword to see if there's any cards on it. And I saw the card, and I can see the card history, and I saw that I had said that I knew the card like 7 times in a row, but I had no
Mhm.
recollection of that. And I realized that, okay, you really do have to be careful when you use Anki. Otherwise, you can just waste your time thinking you know stuff you don't.
Yeah. Well, that's because you were doing those cards at like 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, probably. That's why. But yeah, I mean, you got to be truthful to yourself. And yeah, I think if I could go back, I would do my Anki much slower. But then
Hmm.
again, like, if I
You got
did
to
it much
squeeze it in,
slower,
right?
what was that?
You got to squeeze it in. You got to make time for
Right.
these things.
Exactly. But then you got to squeeze it in. So I think that for me personally, it was important. That was the best way I could study, is using Anki and having those quick cards, because otherwise I would have been zoned out.
Yeah.
I feel like I got more burnt out doing question banks, like long form paragraph questions, after a while, than I did just doing the cards. So I feel like then it does come down to personal preference. Like you need to get the work done. Maybe it is better that you do 120 questions, full questions a day, versus 5 hours of Anki. But can you do 120 questions without burning out? I don't know. But it depends
And
on the
then
person.
when did you? True. It's got to come down to your own personalized strategy by trying all of them early on. But then you need to narrow it down and just stick with one and go with it. That's another big thing that I think is important. When did you get to like? When did you study? Was it during Anki? Was it during the question banks? When did you use boot camp? When did you use or boards and beyond? Or did you use Pathoma? Or did you use first aid at all for you? When did you use those resources?
Right, absolutely. So I actually used a little bit of everything. I did explore everything. So boot camp was my base of operations. So anything that I needed to learn, like genuinely learn and watch like a long form video on it, was boot camp. And I would do the entire section. So I would do the entire section, like say it's cardiology. I would watch all the cardiology videos and unsuspend the Anki cards per video, and then go to the next section. So, and then once I was finished with all of bootcamp, like I've watched every single video on there, I've unsuspended all the cards, I've done all the Anki. Then I started my UWorld question bank, and at that point, I didn't utilize any videos from the main base, so I didn't watch any bootcamp anymore, because at that point I had seen the broad overview, and then I started. If I did need to watch more content, let's say my pathology of GI was weak, then I would supplement that with Pathoma. And I used Pathoma as a more targeted resource of specifically what I was deficient in. So, you get the score reports from question banks that you do. You'll get score reports from the MBMEs, and you can see that what your weakest section is. You take your weakest section and watch a bunch of videos on it. It becomes your strongest section, and then you just go down the list, and then eventually your score just keeps rising. At least in my instance, for specifically microbiology and pharmacology, I thought that Sketchy had a really good resource there because those, a lot of that is brute memorization. It's very difficult to do, in my opinion, lecture style. I think putting analogies and colorful illustrations helped with that. And combined with Anki, I think made for a really good combination where
Mm.
where it was perfect in the sense that I did not feel like I was missing any questions in those topics. Those topics were both very strong for me because it was the MBME tests it in a very memorization heavy way, and both Sketchy and Anki are made to combat that. So to counter that, I think that was a very good combination there. The
That's a
other
great.
sections, sorry,
Yeah.
let's say so the other sections are less memorization based even now. They really are trying the MBMEs, and you can read this in their question writing guidelines that they publish. They are trying to do very little memorization based questions.
Hmm. I was going to say, yeah, Sketchy Farm, Sketchy Micro, those were two that I used. Yeah, excellent, really excellent resources for those two sections. So you were predominantly doing like boot camp and those areas when you were doing the Anki cards. That's what you're telling me.
Right, exactly. So it was in tandem. So, whatever video you watched had its own associated Anki cards,
Hmm.
which were curated by On King. So On King is the biggest platform on Anki. They have the bank of 33,000 cards, and essentially all the platforms pull from their banks, and they choose out of those 33,000 cards which cards are applicable to my video. So Boards and Beyond does this, Bootcamp does this, Sketchy does this. The deck manager from the company, in most cases, or maybe it's done by volunteers in some cases, will go through and assign out of those 33,000 cards which ones they want to associate to the video. So for Bootcamp, I was the deck maintainer for a long time, and we revamped all the cards. So if anyone has the On King newsletter and you want to look at it in 2024, 2025, you'll see that my account was suggesting like thousands and thousands and thousands of tags every single month. And I actually did want to talk about this too. Um, I think the boot camp on King has 26,000 cards, something like this, and it's very, very densely tagged. And when I did this intentionally because my idea was that I would give you all the information you wanted, and if you don't want some of these cards, you could unsuspend them later,
Hmm.
as opposed to not giving you the cards. Because people have told me, hey, there's too many cards tagged to these videos, which is valid. But then my idea was, hey, you don't have to do the ones you don't want to do.
Got it. Got it. So that's
Same.
your early on, and that's for several months before you even get to the question banks. Got it.
Right. Yeah. So basically, sorry, I got on a little tangent. Yeah. Before I even touched the question banks, I did finished all of Anki, all of boot camp, did all 26,000 cards or however many there was at the time associated with those videos. And once those were done, then I dropped Anki, did UWorld. Once UWorld was done, dropped UWorld, did MBMEs, and then took the exam.
So you only went through World.
Yeah, it was technically like once in like a quarter. I tried to do a little bit more of it, but the truth is I don't know if it's necessary to do UWorld twice because there's so much MBME content on there. There's thousands and thousands of MBME questions that are official MBME questions, right? So I like why not just do those twice, right? Those are closer to the actual. Those are going to be, those aren't third parties. So so what I actually did to answer your question, I did UWorld once, but I did all the MBMEs like 2 times or 3 times. I basically memorized like every single MBME question I could. And there's thousands of those questions out there. So yeah, I don't know if if you're crunched on time, I would say it's more important, in my opinion, it's more important to do MBMEs and memorize those questions and really understand those questions because that's most likely going to show up on your actual exam. The third parties are great, but they're great for learning.
Hmm.
But what's going to show up on the exam is not going to be more similar to the third party. The third party is made for you to learn the material. the actual exam is made to test you on the material. So it's a little bit different.
And I like that idea that a month out you start doing your NVMEs. That does make the most sense. And yeah, so I mean, if you have a lot of time, that's where Anki makes sense. But if you need to do crunch time, 3-4 months, yeah. So you're trying to get to the question banks, but you did you did UWorld once, and you didn't use Amboss, so a little more than once, and you didn't use Amboss. No, so I'm curious, like what how that would combine into one, because you need several months to get through Anki. So if you don't have that much time, you would skip through to the Q
Question
banks.
bank. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. If someone were to tell me I have to take the exam in 4 months, I would not. It would not, in my opinion, it's not feasible to do the Anki method, because the Anki method is best if you are a fresh D1, or and you just came in and you're taking it in like 13, 15 months. Then it's
Yeah.
fantastic because you're gonna have that really good like long-term memory. But if you don't have, you're on crunch time, you only have 3 to 4 months, the strategy is completely different, right? Because you're going to skip all of that. You're going to have to go straight into QBank essentially. And the difficulty there is, how are you going to learn the concepts? So at that point, I think, watching long form videos might not be the best. It might be better at that point to do the more very targeted, very high yield only types of videos.
Of studying high yield videos and then going to the material like boot camp or Boards and Beyond or etc. If you need to step out of the questions in those areas, yeah, I like that. Or if you're going section by section, that works too. The nice thing about Anki for several months is that you can trace that along with the courses that you're taking too. So
Right,
maybe you're
exactly.
in like what do they call it, CPR, cardiovascular pulmonary renal. You're
Right.
hitting those with Anki, yeah, yeah. So and it traces your class, so it's like a review. So it's supporting both ends at the same time, CBSE studying and the course studying. So yeah, that is pretty beneficial. But yeah, yeah. So what about you, man? So you're finishing up now, right?
Right, right. So I'm a third year, so I'll have one more after this,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll
What
be
do you-
done.
You're done with the exam, right? What about externships? What's next for you?
Yeah, so I have 4 externships planned in the summer. So gonna go ahead and do those. I'm super excited for to go there and see the programs. I picked a lot of my externships based off of, just from what I from what I hear that they mainly do there and mainly study there. So I picked a good variety there, I think. So externships are definitely important for the application, as you've talked about too, right?
Yep.
On your talk, you told the other day, but you said you got to do the CBSE first, right? Because what did you say? You said nobody didn't take the CBSE but went on 10 externships. You say it better than I do.
No, I mean like you do 10 externships, but without a CBSE, you're not getting an interview. That's
Right.
just this is a fact, you know what I mean?
Right,
But
right.
you can get that CBSE score out of the way, the test exam out of the way, and do no externships. I know people that literally more than one person that did that, and they got multiple interviews. So
Yeah.
it's just the externships are it's really, I would still put it as like necessary, but
Mm.
essentially you got to get the CBSE out of the way first, and you did that. So you have 4 externships planned, and you haven't done it. You haven't done one externship yet.
Not yet, not yet. So the first one I'm going to go on is in 2 months.
2 months. Okay, so
Yeah.
right now we're in April, so we're
Well,
looking
it's
at
June.
June, and you have 4 planned. Good. Okay, when does your application go up?
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the application should open sometime in May and it'll close in September. So I tried to align my externships kind of like closer to the deadline, just so it would be more fresh in my mind, especially when I'm writing my personal statement and when I'm writing my, why this school or whatever secondaries they may or may not have. So I know some people who went on externships as early as December of this year, which is totally fine. It depends on, different schools give you different availability. At my school, they give you 3 weeks guaranteed off for externships. But if you don't have that at your school, you might have to do it in December during a winter break or something like that, or like during a spring break in March.
3 weeks off.
Right.
That's pretty good. Good for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it's great. It's great. I know, I mean, we've had people take up to like 6 or 7 externships. You can get more, you can get some more off, but it's not recommended, right? I know someone who did 8 externships. It was crazy.
They get in.
Yeah, yeah, they matched.
All right, all right,
Yeah,
good.
they matched their first choice, so it worked out. But
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't, it's not necessary to go nowhere near most. Most people do what, like one or two? Is that true or? or 2 or 3?
Yeah, I would say I would put between 2 and 5. Three is, I usually recommend three is the magic number. I mean, I've been talking to
Right.
hundreds of people, maybe even thousands at this point over the years. And you really want to try and hit three. And I tell everyone this, if you can do more, do it, right? Five is great if you can get it, but you don't want to compromise your grades. You don't want to compromise your standing. I would
Right.
definitely go the extra mile to do it if you can. If you can, but like we both just said, some dental schools don't allow you to get that. And I wouldn't push the envelope and force it too much. But you do really want to try and hit like that three number because that's going to look good on your resume. You're going to have more to
Right.
talk about on the interviews, and then you get a nice variety on your resume, and that's really important for your application.
Yeah, it's great for, I feel like it's great for networking too, and the amount of people you meet there. You meet all the residents, the program directors. All my friends that have been on there, they have all had great experiences. And you, resume aside, you genuinely just learn so much. You see what different programs are because we don't live in a cookie cutter world where everyone does exactly the same thing. So, I think what you see is probably going to influence you for many many years because now you know how people do it somewhere else.
It is 100%. The things I got to see and even assist on in my externships, still to this day, I didn't get to do some of those things in my residency. So as far as scope goes, that's a great point, Ruben. Another thing I would put in that your externship trail is you get to see that program, they get to meet you. But a third thing is you get a chance to talk to those residents, especially the younger ones. Where else did they extern? Where did they apply? Where else did where were they really impressed that they ranked highly, right? It gives you an opportunity to learn about other prims that you will never get to. And you can
Right.
kind of, or maybe you do, maybe you learn about it on your first day of the externship. By Friday, you have one scheduled for the end of the summer. I don't know. I'm just throwing out examples there, but it's an opportunity for you to learn about other programs that dental students at your school didn't tell you about, but the externs from other places in the country even told you about. So it's a really good opportunity for that. What else? What else do we to touch on with the externships? I think that's just about everything.
Right.
Couple things.
I was thinking
Yeah,
after I go on them, we can talk more.
yeah, we could do that too. And I like that what you did, where you scheduled it towards the end of or you said right before
Right.
June through whenever July, August. Just you don't want to wait too late. I wouldn't be because it's a good idea so that you're fresh in the program's mind after your externship. So that's a green light. But you don't want to be delaying your application from being submitted either. And now,
Right.
if you submitted, and mine was submitted I think it was August 30th actually. After I finished my last externship, got it all in. Everything worked out fine. I had 14 or 15 interviews. So I don't want people to feel like it's crunch time, but you definitely want to start working on that personal statement. I would say,
Right.
like May, June is go time to just get some drafts. You're going to go through like 8 or 9 drafts before
Right.
you're
Right.
done with that. So look, I'm just throwing a lot out there for listeners, to think of, and you too. When are you going to plan to start your personal statement? You said later.
Yes, and I think you hit a great point. The disadvantage of pushing your externships later is now, there's less for me to talk about because, even if let's say the applications due September 1st and my last externships like the last week of August, I can't have my personal statement ready in like one day,
Right.
right? So, anything cool that I could have seen on that last externships, I can't write about right now. So there is that disadvantage. So I guess, absolutely, I think what you're recommending makes sense is, finding that good balance between giving you some time to really explore and be able to talk about it, and then also being kind of fresh in the program's mind and having all those ideas fresh when you actually are writing whatever you need to write.
Yeah.
So I'm so me personally, I'm probably going to start writing my personal statement probably in the next 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I haven't. That's the thing. I don't know too much about what direction I want to take this in. So I'm gonna have to do some more research on it and see,
Yeah.
how other people have done theirs and kind of get some feedback. And maybe you have some suggestions for me and the other listeners. How would you recommend going about finding
Just
personal
just
statement?
start with some cookie cutter thing. Really do it. Like just start with one page. Just start. Remember, you're gonna do like 12 different drafts. It's gonna be completely different at the end. That's not the point. Just get some word vomit onto the page. It's early. I mean, we're in April right now. You start within 2 weeks. Say you don't even start writing in 2 weeks. Start with doing research, like you said. Ask around for some D4s. See what they wrote. See people that you admire that are willing to actually lend you a draft. of their personal statement. No, that'll be great. Then you get some word vomit on the page. Do like the cookie cutter format, like intro, body, conclusion, something wrap it up where it's like, and I'm excited to explore this my interest further in oral surgery at your program. This is why I think I'm a good fit at your program next year. Maybe you tailor it to that, but it's just really maybe it's 4 or 5 paragraphs even, but it's going to be like a story. It's going to be a storyline starting from the intro, just something simple about you in the beginning. Then you talk about experiences, dental school experiences. Maybe you start leaving some room for an externship experience or two, and then you summarize it up. That's you're really going to tailor it, and you have months to do that. But you got to make sure, like every 2 weeks, you're going back in there and adding some more writing. And this sounds this time. You take it out, save the draft, and then save a new draft. Like 1.1 or 1, 2, 3, 4. That's really it. It's going to be it's going to be a marathon. It's not a sprint. This thing, it's really not.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what helps is this is technically not our first time doing this, right? We did it for dental school, so it's round 2, but the stakes are just much higher, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't even read. Don't even read your one. You're gonna be like, what? Who is this?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's happy with their dental school personal statements. They're reading back at it and they're like, "Oh, this is cringe." What did I write here?
Very cringe. I remember going back and I was like, I can't even use this. There's not even a sentence in here. Another thing I just thought of with externships I usually recommend is like extranet reach programs, right? Because obviously maybe you want to do your home dental school program. Sure. But when you go out there, I would not recommend externing at a place where it's like, all right, 90% of last year's applicants had interviews here. Maybe you don't want to do an extra unless they needed to do an externship there because there are programs where it's like they want you to do an externship to get an interview. Fair. But if not, I wouldn't go and do an externship at a program that you're pretty much expecting an interview at because you could ruin your chance of getting an interview there. I would extern at the reach programs, something where you're like, this is all the way out there in the sticks. I don't expect to get an externship there, but it's going to look good on my resume, like a LSU Shreveport, like a Cook County, a Baylor, like a Park, yada, yada, you get it. Go there. Go to the big name programs. You don't expect to get an interview there, quote unquote, right? Like reach. But if you have a solid externship there, you just got yourself an interview at a place that you didn't expect. Say you blow it and you sucked, right? But you have that program on your resume when you apply to other programs. Okay, so that I just want listeners to think about that. There is a little strategy game to the externships.
Right, absolutely. I think there is. I personally wouldn't know best, but Dr. Gallagher does. So I would go with what you say.
That knows better. No, I'm not. I'm just I've spent years thinking about this, talking to hundreds of people about this concept. Actually, someone at the event was asking about, do you rank based on how you think the program is interested in ranking you, or how you're interested in going to the top programs? And always, hands down, if you try to rank based on what you think the programs are interested in, you're guessing, and guessing is not a game that you want to do in the match system, right? Because it's meant to match in the applicant's favor first before the program's favor.
Right.
These programs like Oklahoma going 0 for 4 last year, Jacksonville, the whole 9 yards, whatever. But you want to rank in terms of your interests every time. If we could go into how you get there, like the long walks on the beach, the shower, walking the dog, and you're like, you know what, I really want to be there next year. Go with your gut feeling, intuition overall.
Right, and I think that's just a common misconception that people hear, that the match system is like it's like a pair game where if you rank someone higher and they want you higher, that's how you get in. But if I don't rank somebody higher, it's like a gaming system, but it's actually, I don't think it's like that. I think it's made to benefit only the applicant. There's no gaming the system. You just rank exactly where you would want to go, and it just goes down the list. So if you don't get into your first choice, let's say that gets filled up, your second choice effectively just became your first choice. So there's no disadvantage of being honest. Or at least it's made intentionally to not be gamified.
That's exactly it. Yeah. If you try and game it a little bit, you're trying to rank it based on guesses, you're just hurting yourself. So definitely don't do that. We got a couple more minutes here, man. Anything else you want to touch on? I know we're past your bedtime pretty late. We're going to do a part 2 in the future. I'm not really worried about that. So
I think in the last couple of minutes, what would be important to talk about is kind of just mentorship from like upperclassmen to underclassmen, D3 to D1 to D2, something like that, D4 to D3. I think especially in the field that we're going down and the complexity of the OS application, the CBSE, it's very difficult to be on your own and not have somebody who's done the process, who has gotten good results, there for you to answer your questions and guide you through the way. When I was a D2 and we had a new batch of D1s come in, I went up to them. I said, all right, I found a few of them. I said, gather everyone who wants to do OS and meet here. I took like 10 kids out to lunch and I told them, all right, download Anki. Your first day of school is next week. Get a boot camp subscription. Start studying. And there's this photo of me and like 10 people at lunch, and it's like August of they just got there. And, I helped set them on a path that they would succeed. A year and a half later, most of those people got 75 and above on the CBSE. They did fantastic. And now that I'm a D3, they're D2s, they're mentoring the next generation of D1s. And I think that's the great thing about, and I can speak just about my school, Columbia, because that's where I am, is we do have that culture there where we really do mentor the underclassmen, and it's very important to do because when they were studying, I was getting texts from different people every single week about something else, because even the micro questions they have, so not microbiology, like small scale questions, they have a lot to ask. So I think it would be very, very difficult to do this on your own. So I would just encourage everyone to be open to mentoring the underclassmen, and be genuine about it, right? Just give somebody your phone number. Just say, reach out to me if there's anything I can do. And that's not the only thing, because I feel like if you just give somebody your number and you say, hey, reach out to me when you need something, I don't think that's enough. I think you also can check in on them,
Mm.
and see how they're doing, check in on them every month and a half, see how their studying is going. What unit are they on? Are they feeling burnt out? Are they doing good? And I think it's just a kind thing to do. And it also really just helps build that culture there, because, once somebody does that, when that person finishes it, they feel obligated to help out the person that's coming after them. So I think it's just a very important thing that, no matter what dental school you're at, you can do
I
that.
really appreciate that. That's a great message and an important lesson in life. And then you never know what's going to happen. There may be a day where all of a sudden you're down the path and you're looking for a partner to work with, and there's someone that you had mentored or mentored you that's looking for a job, someone that's looking for whatever it may be. You know what I mean? And or
Yeah.
maybe they don't end up going into oral surgery in their GP, but then you guys end up working on cases together. They do the restorative for your oral and X's. Like, there's so much collaboration in the future. And Ruben, I completely agree with it. It starts at this level, right?
Right.
That's where it starts. It all begins somewhere, and that's a great example of it. The text, hey, I know you got that test next week. Is there anything I can answer for you coming up? I know it's a stressful time. I was there just a year ago. I get it.
Right.
That's a huge thing, man. I like that. I really appreciate that.
Course, and it makes a huge difference, because when you're in that, because it, you were in the shoes, you know how stressful it was, and there's always conflicting information. Should I
Mm,
do more Anki here or more question banks? And a lot of the times there might not be a definitively correct answer, but when you have somebody there for you to help you out, to kind of guide you, it makes a huge difference. I think that there is a huge benefit. And like you said, we're going to be, 1 year of a difference, or even 4 year of a difference, is nothing in the grand scheme of things. If I'm a D3 right now and there's a D1, we're probably, and let's say we both become oral surgeons or someone becomes a GP, whatever, like we're both going to be working for the next 40, 50 years, realistically. That's a very long relationship to have, that we can work on now to establish a friendship and become colleagues, etc. So I think just thinking about things in that grand scheme of things, that this is a small world and it's a small community. In a few years it's going to pass like in a snap of a finger, and then we're both out there in the real world for 50 years. So let's
oh yeah.
help each other out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We need to see more of that in dentistry. We really do. We really do. That's good. That's great, man. Yeah. Any other? What else you want to touch on? You got to go. But this was a great talk, and I really hope
Yeah.
that some people can listen to this. This is going to be listened to for years by pre-dents. No, really, because that's the feedback that I'm getting with these. It's like a slow process, you know.
Right.
That's great. It's great, man. How are you doing?
How am I doing? No, I'm doing great. I mean, I'm doing everything that I love doing, which is I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about medical education. I work on medical education every single day. We just put on that conference. I love everything oral surgery, learning about it. So, I work a lot of hours every single day, but when you do the thing you like to do, it's just like there's no other choice. Like nothing else appeals to me besides this. So, I'm good, and as long as you have friends there with you along the way, it's fantastic. As long as we make connections like you and I today, and we can have just a cool talk and inspire other people, that's all that matters. So, I guess to wrap it up, I would just say, if anyone, you said you have a lot of pre-dents in your audience,
Oh yeah.
I would say if you know that for the pre-dental students, if you know that you want to go into oral surgery, in my opinion, you can start studying for the CBSE whenever you want, because we have such good online resources. Um, you know, Getting a subscription to something like boot camp, you can do that online at home, and you could just check it out. You could just watch some videos. The difference between you and someone else studying it isn't that much. You can start whenever you want to, whenever you feel comfortable, or you just play around with Anki, download the software. It was first made to learn Japanese with, so you could even use it for something else. But get excited. It's going to be a long journey in front of you, and hopefully you're going to meet a lot of great friends.
Yeah, man. And I'm gonna follow you through it too. I want to see you match to a great program. That's gonna be
Thank
next.
you.
That's gonna be
Yeah,
less than a year now. Jesus.
yeah, less than a year.
Yeah, yeah, dude. No, but you got the steps planned out. You got the externships ready to go. You got a good timeline for your personal statement. I'm not worried about you. This is good. And obviously, I'm here if you ever need anything. From what I can help with, being removed from the process a little bit. But all right,
Appreciate it.
man. I'll let you go to bed.
Thank you.
We'll chat soon too, man. Let me know what you were talking about with boot camp, because I would definitely like to consider some type of collaboration, some partnership, something going there. That would be fun. That would be really. I think it'd be very helpful too, with all the
Great.
content I'm throwing out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll stay in touch. I'll let you know.
Get some rest. I'll talk to you soon.
All
Thanks
right.
for coming on tonight.
Of course. Bye.